Okay, French defense again. This will be our third variation. We've already talked about these moves, and we've looked at bishop to b4. We've looked at knight to f6. And now we will consider the exchange variation. Now, you go through these openings to understand the theory behind the moves and the ideas within the opening, because every opening will have its own unique idea. Well, not totally unique, but will have its own idea. And you want to understand those ideas before you have to sit down and compete, because a lot of your time will be spent trying to understand the idea. You might get it wrong. Here you have a lot more time to understand the idea, to understand how you would like to approach the opening. These are the main line moves, and there may be one move in this line that you just aren't comfortable with. Even though it's a correct move and nothing's wrong with it, a different move is more your style, and you can make that move. As long as it's not a bad move, as long as it's giving away pieces, as long as that's not your style, you can make that move, but it's best to decide on that move before you're actually sitting down at the board playing a competitive game in a tournament where your time and your money is on the line. The more you can prepare before the tournament, the better off you'll be. Okay. Exchange variation. Knight takes e4. Knight d7. There's no pawn chain anymore. White does not have a definite advantage at e4. So there's going to be totally different plans here. Developing a piece. Developing a piece, and this is interesting. Take. Black has no problems. He can move his bishop, get it on the long diagonal, can move the other bishop, get castled. If you allow black to take, well, let's say you defend your knight, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop moves back. Again, black has no problems. In this position, I prefer knight to g3. Because that's what I prefer, I'll do my due diligence and analyze and see if it's actually a move that could result in white having an advantage. But you also have to understand what the ideas behind the main line are, and then you can substitute your own ideas, provided those ideas are sound. And before the tournament, before the game, is when you figure out whether or not that opening idea is sound. Here it's recommended that you take the knight off. I do not understand the purpose in directly exchanging that central knight. But again, I'll have to have discussions and do further digging into this opening to find out what I'm missing, if anything. Developing pieces. Black hits at f5 because pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. It's recommended that it's taken off. Now I don't understand that. You just help black develop his bishop and get castled. But what I'll do is I'll consider the alternative. What if you don't take the bishop? What if you don't take the pawn? What could happen to white's position? You can't just assume something is right. You can't just assume it's wrong, especially in the opening. There's enough material out there that you can do adequate research and be certain about the way you would choose to continue in a particular opening. Not that the moves are right or wrong, but it's what best suits your playing style. pinning the knight to the queen. Getting ready to get the bishop on the long diagonal. Getting the queen off of the open file, ready to substitute a rook for it. Bishop on the open file. A rook on the D file, directly across from the king, threatening directly across from the queen, threatening a discovered attack against the queen. And notice that the A rook was used as opposed to the F rook. That F rook might be needed on that E file. Queen immediately comes off of that file. Why constantly challenge your brain about whether or not this is going to be a damaging move? Just get the queen out of the way. This is probably what white was hoping for. Okay, he's damaged the king's castle, and 1, 2, 3 left black with 3 pawn islands, which is usually weak. Now black on the other hand has a pawn in the center. White does not have a pawn in the center. Has a half open file leading to the white's castle position. You very simply step that king over, possibly double those rooks on that file. White does not want to leave black with that long diagonal. Black challenge does not want to leave white with the open file. Looks like he's planning on pushing up against that bishop, forcing him back, but that could leave him with the backward pawn, but right now that backward pawn can be advanced. Looked like this move was to activate these queenside pawns. Okay, if you leave this pawn backwards, now it could have a problem. The queen and the rook will be coming in. Rooks are on the files that are most attractive. Now, I don't totally understand the G3 move, but maybe just to look into the position, if everything gets exchanged off, you do not want your back rank to give your opponent the possibility of checkmating your king. So it could be just giving his king air. Okay, that's the main line of one of the variations in the French defense. Queen is checking the king. The king most likely, he has two choices. Go here, and then go for the file. Or you just step back and immediately go for the file. But you gotta watch this pawn. There's no protection for that pawn, so his bishop is gonna have to come back. Okay. Go through the opening. Again, this was a variation off of the main line. Find the moves that you're most comfortable with. Analyze them and be ready to meet the French defense in competitive play, especially if you're an E4 player. Good enough.